Well, hello and welcome to my latest video. I was watching a couple of videos on YouTube last night, as is my wont, and one of them was talking about some new bikes. I think it was about a new gravel bike, in fact, and there was a whole load of jargon about bikes on all these kind of words and phrases. I've written some of them down here. There was stack height, there was geometry, there was compliance, there was slick tread, there was one by. And to be honest, I didn't know what the presenter was talking about. It might have been a GCN video, and quite a lot of the time I don't know what the people are talking about. So I thought I'd do a bit of research for my own benefit, and because, you know, I've been living in ignorance for a while, I thought it's possible that some of you have been living in ignorance as well and would welcome some explanations of some of these phrases that you constantly hear in videos on GCN and other channels are available. And you think to yourself, I ought to know what that means, but I don't want to ask anybody because I'm going to look stupid. Well, let me advise you, there are no stupid questions, right? As I said to one of my subscribers, ignorance is the yeast in the cake of wisdom. So if you want your cake to rise and be all fluffy, and you don't want to have a soggy bottom of ignorance, then you need to express when you don't understand something, ask, and you will get the solution. So I've done the research, I've done some digging. A lot of it was on Wikipedia, some of it was on YouTube, so some of the things that I've learnt may not be 100% accurate, but you can never be sure. But if it's in my video, trust me, you can trust it. So let's get into it. And the first thing I want to talk about is stack height. Now, you may not be of the same kind of age as I am. I'm in my early 60s, but I remember the days of glam rock and 70s music. And there was a big craze for what was called platform shoes. And platform shoes were designed for people of restricted height. Elton John was one of those. And Elton John, before he became a musician, was a cyclist, quite a good cyclist, in fact. He was mostly interested in time trials, won a couple of 10s, the occasional 25 as well. But being of a fairly short stature, he had trouble reaching the pedals, and so they designed for him, it was Siddy actually, designed for him a special pair of shoes that had these kind of platform heels on. And so the stack height is the height of the heels on your shoes. They're not just restricted anymore to Siddy shoes. You can get them on physic shoes and Giro shoes, even DHB shoes. So if you go on Wiggle or Chain Reaction, or you go into your cycle shop and you're a fairly short person, but you want to ride a bigger bike, then you need to make sure that the stack height of the heels on the cycling shoes that you buy are the right height. So go in, ask for the stack height, and there you go. Next thing is the bottom bracket. And I've been hearing about bottom bracket for a long time, and I have no idea what it meant until I did some serious digging around the internet and I found out. Now, you may have a saddle, and your saddle, particularly if it's leather, and this applies to some of the original Brooks saddles, they're quite shiny and they're quite smooth. And when you're on the saddle, you can be kind of moving back and forth. Your bottom, let's be honest about it, slides back and forth on the saddle, and it's not really that comfortable. So that somebody invented, somebody in Wisconsin, I think, funnily enough, invented what they called the bottom bracket. And the bottom bracket was a little sort of contraption that attached via Velcro to your cycling shorts and to a kind of curved piece, the bracket that was on the saddle. So you sat on the saddle, you attached the bottom bracket to your shorts, and that on the Velcro on that, then you know how Velcro worked, it then stuck to the saddle, and that was your bottom bracket. It was designed to stop you sliding around on a book saddle. You do occasionally still see them, mostly on cyclists of a certain age, touring cyclists perhaps. They tend to have panniers on their backs, and if you go up to them in a youth hostel or somewhere like that and say, can I have a look at your bottom bracket, now I'm sure they'll be able to, they'll be quite happy to show you and maybe allow you to sort of run your hand over it and just feel exactly what it's like. Now, another phrase that I came across was rolling resistance, and they said it in relation to tyres, but I just didn't understand what it means. So again, I did some research, quite a lot of it on YouTube, and I discovered that there was a popular beat combo in the early 60s, and they were called the rolling resistance. And they never really achieved the kind of success that they wanted. They were quite good cyclists, but they were very poor musicians. But as it happens, they were on a bill, a double bill, playing at a pub in Putney in southwest London, and they were playing on a bill with another band, and this band didn't have a name. And they were talking to the band, and the band said, look, Rolling Resistance, we really like, we really like your cycling, but your music is rubbish. So we would like to steal part of your name, only half of your name, because, some of us, the lead singer was called John Stones. And he said, we want to call the band Rolling Stones, right? So we want to take your rolling resistance bit. We don't want the resistance bit. You can keep that, but we want the rolling bit because we want to be the Rolling Stones. And the rolling resistance said, okay, yes, you can do that. But the phrase rolling resistance, because some of them went on to move into the tyre business, and they started designing tyres. A couple of them started off with a kind of square shape. That didn't go down so well. And then somebody started an oval shape. That was successful, but not entirely. And then they came out with the final shape, the round shape. And they called it the Rolling Resistance. So they said, look, we can't use the name of the band anymore because that's now the Rolling Stones. But when you put this tyre on your bike and you go fast, then you're getting rolling resistance, you see? And that's where it came from. Now, certain tyres are knobbly. And you know what knobbly means. We're not going to talk about that. But we do want to talk about slick tread. And you just hear this, you see these tyres advertised, Panaracer of it, and it says it's got a slick tread, and you say, what is the slick tread? Well, slick tread was a crofter in Scotland, very successful crofter, and he had a kind of cart, a wooden cart, used to go around his fields in his wooden cart. And the wheels that he had on his cart, he liked them, and he gave them the name, his own name, which was Slick Tread. So his friends would come round for a wee dram of whiskey, and they would sit together in the front room with the sheep, and they'd say, Slick, how you doing, Slick? And Slick would say, I'm doing all right, boys, I'm doing all right. And they'd say, Slick Tread. There's a man who knows his wheels, and that's where it came from. So Slick Tread is a brand of wheels very popular in Scotland. The head tube. You're looking at a frame and you see the measurements of the head tube, and you think, well, which part of the bike is the head tube? Well, I can tell you that the head tube is not actually part of the bike at all. The head tube is this bit. Here in Britain, we call this the neck. Okay, but neck doesn't translate easily into some languages. So they use a kind of literal translation, and they say head tube. All right, so when you're going out on your bike, particularly in the winter, and it gets cold, and that part of the front of your bike gets cold, it's because your head tube doesn't have a kind of covering on it. You can use a snood or a buff. Somebody told me that buff was a brand name. So buff is a brand name for a head tube. So you get one of those kind of neck coverings may be made of merino wool or polyester or nylon or recycled plastics or something else, and you put that on your neck, as we call it in Britain or in other countries, it keeps your head tube warm. And if your head tube is warm, particularly in the cold weather, you'll be able to cycle a bit faster. The next one is around gear systems, and a recent gear system that's been developed is called the 1-by. You may have heard of the 2-by, and recently they've come up with the 1-by, which is often found on gravel bikes. And you think, well, I don't know what this expression 1-by means. Well, you will have heard of the expression bog off, which is used by supermarkets in Britain, and is an abbreviation for buy one, get one free. And the idea is that you buy one item and you get another of the same item, but you don't pay for that. And the way it works is, let's say that the individual item costs I don't know, let's say £5. Okay, so they say to you, all right, if you buy one, the price is now £10, but you buy one, the price is, you get one free. Okay, you see, so you don't actually get it free. What you do is you pay double the price to get twice the number. Now, the 1-by system is a variation on this, and the way it works is you buy one, but you don't get one free. All right, so it's 1-by. All right, so you buy your gear system, and you don't get another gear system free. Now, you can get a 2-by system, and that's where you get a front chainring and you get a second chainring for free, you see. But with the 1-by system, you just get one chainring, right? You're not getting anything for free, you're just getting one chainring. So if you go into your circle shop and you say, I'd like to buy one 1-by, they'll say, well, do you want to buy 2-by but get one free, or do you want to buy one and not get any free but just 1-by? And you say, I think I want the 1-by system, and they say, come with me, sir. And then they will sell you a 1-by system, probably for your very expensive gravel bike, and then you can tell all of your friends you've got a gear system. It's not quite as good as the one that they've got, but it is a 1-by system, and therefore you bought one, and because you bought one, you got the 1-by system. So a little bit confusing, but I hope that's explained it. Now, also, if you're into your gravel bikes, as of course I am, you will have heard that there are two different types of wheels you can get. There is a 650B and there is a 700C. And you might have said to yourself, well, I don't know what a 650B is. I don't know what a 700C is. I've seen that this particular gravel cyclist who makes a lot of YouTube videos recommends the use of a 650B. This other cyclist who makes a lot of YouTube videos recommends the use of a 700C. I'm not sure what the difference is. Well, all will be explained. And you'll remember back in school, you did algebra, and that's where the numbers were replaced with letters, and you had no idea what that meant, because algebra went over your head as it goes over everybody's head, and so it remained Greek to you. You may have been doing Latin, you may have been doing Greek, you may have been doing algebra, but either way you didn't understand it. Anyway, 650B is an algebraic formula, and the formula is 6 times 5 over 0 times B. Okay, so should we do that again? 6 times 5 over, that's where you have a line, and underneath it you have the 0 or the naught times B. All right, and that represents the size of the wheel. And it's the same situation with the 700C. Okay, it's 7 times 0 over 0 times C, and that is the size of your wheel. So if you go into your bike shop and you say to them, I want to have a 6 times 5 over 0 times C wheel on the front and a 7x0 over 0 times C on the rear, and they will set your bike up in that particular way, and it will be the best bike you've ever owned. And the final one we want to talk about is used often in mountain bikes and occasionally now in gravel bikes, and the expression is fork trail. All right, and we had in Britain a couple of comedians. They were known as comedians. They were Ronnie Corbett and Ronnie Barker, and they were known as the two Ronnies. And the reason they were known as the two Ronnies was because their first names were Ronnie. Okay, they could have been known as Barker and Corbett, but in fact they were known as the two Ronnies. And they had a sketch, a very famous sketch, which was called Fork Handles, and which lots of people found really, really funny. I personally never understood it. But the thing about the fork trail is the fork trail is a gravel route in Oregon, where my friend Dustin Klein, very popular YouTuber, very fine gravel rider, goes on the fork trail. And it's called the fork trail. It had nothing to do with the two Ronnies, by the way. That was just by the way. It's called the fork trail because you go along and you come to a fork in the road. You know what a fork is? It goes off one way, it goes off two ways. In this country, our forks tend to have three prongs. You know what those prongs are called? Those prongs are called tines, right? There's something you may not have known. So you might have a 3-tined fork or a 4-tined fork. But in Portland, they haven't yet developed the 3-tined fork or even the 4-tined fork. All they have is the 2-tined fork. So you ride along the gravel trail. It's all muddy and rocky and so on and so forth. You have your 650B wheels. You have your 1-by system. You have your head tube. You have your stack height. You've got your rolling resistance. And you come to the fork in the road and you say, which fork do I take? And the thing is, it doesn't matter, right? And this is a kind of metaphor for life as well. You come to a fork in the road and you say, which fork shall I take? It doesn't matter, because both forks end up in the same place, right? In my house, it's the top drawer of the dishwasher. In your house, the forks may end up somewhere else. And I hope you've enjoyed this introduction to some common cycling terms, and I hope you'll come back. In my house, the forks end up in the top drawer of the dishwasher. I don't know where they end up in your house, but if you've enjoyed this video, it raises money for charity. Thank you for staying till the end. See you next time.